Hi, welcome to How to Be a Humane Leader Without Losing Your Job. Dive deep into humane leadership strategy for today's fast-paced business world. Listen to our podcast on all major streaming platforms and join us as we explore the essence of humane leadership in today's dynamic business landscape. I'm Roberto Torres, a seasoned startup engineering leader, alongside Trace Ollerton, a Fortune 100 IT leader. Today, we're switching things up. I'll be sharing a personal story about a milestone in my career where I decided to switch companies based on cultures that were more aligned to myself. Howdy, sir. How are you?
Very good. Happy New Year, Roberto. Good to see you in the new year.
Indeed. Happy New Year to you too. Thank you very much. And likewise as well. Well, let me tell you something about my life. I was working back when I began working at a bank. I think it was more than 20 years ago, or maybe 30 years ago, when I was beginning to work at a company that it was huge for me. Before that, I had small jobs. And when I went to a bank, I was so happy because I was learning a lot. I was working with too many people, intelligent people which led me to better positions and to gain more knowledge. I was really, really happy. And when I was 2 years back at that bank, I was promoted to lead, and I spent 3 years at that lead position, and I enjoyed it a lot. But suddenly, back in '98, I thought to myself, okay, well, it's time for me to become a manager. So what I did, instead of saying that and looking for a manager position, I began looking for some mentors to tell me what should I do to become a to become a manager, and what to do to be promoted to that. And I spent like 8 months training myself, learning a lot of stuff, reading many books, talking with those mentors in order to become a manager. So I went directly with my head of the department, and I told him that I wanted to become a manager, and I presented a plan an action plan for me to become a manager, and how could I in this management position to bring more solutions and bring more revenue to the bank. Because even though we were an engineering department, uh, I could provide this solution. And I was disappointed back then because that head told me, no, 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 Roberto, hold your horses. If you want to become a manager, you have to spend 5 more years in order to do that. And I felt disappointed because why should I do that? I wanted to become a manager. I trained to become one. And I was not also eager, but I was uh, strengthen my hard skills and also my soft skills. So I felt disappointed. So what I did back then was to give my resume to a friend who was working at Microsoft back at that time, and he gave it to a company, a small, in this case, a startup company, and I was hired as a manager. And this milestone was really good for me because it allowed me to change cultures. Back at that time, the bank wasn't the place where I wanted to be because it was so structured, it was so big, it was that you couldn't move forward or get promoted rapidly because you had to spend a lot of years. So
Yeah,
what do you think of that?
big companies have big rules, and I think you're very fortunate that early in your career, before you'd invested another 5 years in the bank or another 10 years in the bank, that you really were wise beyond your age to kind of reflect on what is it that makes Roberto tick? What's going to make Roberto happy in what he does to earn money? And a lot of people don't realize that early enough, right? Because sometimes, it can be challenging to try changing career directions or changing the type of company you work in. If you spent 25 years in, let's say, huge companies, right? It would be very difficult to switch to a startup and vice versa. So you're very fortunate that early on, you had a bad, experience. I mean, obviously, being told you can't become the manager wasn't what you wanted to hear, but it turned out to be what you needed to hear, so that you would reflect back and say, okay, he just told me no, this doesn't fit with what I want to do. So what do I do? Now, some people would have said, oh, all right, well, I have to do 5 more years. Then, all right, I'll do 5 more years. But you didn't, that wasn't satisfactory to you. So you were lucky in that, one, you got the bad news, and two, you took the initiative to, reflect on what is it that's going to make you happy. Because it's not, big companies aren't for everybody, medium-sized companies aren't for everybody, and startups aren't for everybody.
Mhm.
You have to think about you want to be able to move up rapidly. You don't want a lot of structure and rules around how promotions are determined, or what a rigid career path. You didn't want that. And there were probably some other things that you didn't want and certain things you did want, and you were able to evaluate that and have a network of people that could help you achieve it. That's very important too, because if you didn't have that friend who could help you navigate and apply for other things, it might have taken you a while. You might have spent another 2 years at the bank before you went someplace else if you didn't also have that personal network. So those are some critical things that went in your favor, partially because of you, right? Because you had the drive to determine it. And some of it was a little bit of fate or luck. Because if you didn't have that friend working at Microsoft, it would have been harder. Wouldn't have been impossible, but it might have been harder.
Oh yeah, true. And the thing is, I think that some people, when they have a setback, they they stall, instead of moving forward or trying to look for something else, they stall and they say, okay, if it's not for me to go to become a manager, I'll stick in this position. And as you mentioned, I had the drive, I had the inertia, the impulse to become better, because it wasn't a whim. It wasn't a whim in which I say I want to become a manager and bring me the money and bring me the position. No, I had to train myself. I have to understood what was wrong with me and what was okay and what was good with me, because all these mentors that I had at the bank told me the truth, and sometimes that truth hurt. And it was really, because I saw myself with a specific set of glasses, and I saw, like not maybe the superhero with the cape, flying around and making all this stuff. And they told me you had all this behavior that shouldn't be in a manager. You have to change. You have to switch in mindset, but you're okay or you're really good at this. And that's why I chose to become a manager. Not only because you earn more money, but also because I was a proven leader, excuse me, a proven humane leader back then. And back then I didn't saw myself as a humane leader, but I wanted to become more. And that's the thing also that in this case, we as human leaders, if we recognize someone who is rising through the ladder rapidly and want to become more, why shouldn't we help these kind of persons to become more and to be more? If we say to them, no, you have to be in this rigid structure in which you cannot go as fast as you can, maybe this isn't the place. Maybe tell them, if you want to become more, maybe another place. Do not say, hey, you're going to get fired, but maybe in another kind of culture. No?
Right. Exactly. And there are, not that culture isn't perfect for everybody. Everybody has different personalities. I mean, even within, let's say, leaders who are humane, the style and structure that they want to work in, the types of projects they want to work on, the longevity of the projects or the magnitude of the projects, et cetera. Those all are variables that, as you're in your career, you really do have to sit back and think about what is it that's going to make you happy. Because unless you are Elon Musk and you're going to invent PayPal and sell it for millions and billions in the first couple of years of your working career, odds are you're probably going to work 35, maybe 45 years. That's a lot of work. And the best thing that you can do, and very lucky for you, that very early in the early stages of your career, you were able to rule some things out that, you know what, a bank, it earns me a paycheck, I can pay my groceries, I can, maybe earn a car, etc. But it's not rewarding. This isn't what I want to do for the next 40 years of my life, right? And you realize that you needed a different cultural fit, a different style of working. Maybe it's so again, since you went into startups, right? It's maybe it's that rapid change. It's you don't know tomorrow what you'll be working on for sure, because something could suddenly change and we need to go in a different direction and pivot. Also by going to different companies, the culture completely changes every time, right? All these different companies you've worked for, the culture went through, it didn't change at the company. Well, I'm sure it changed somewhat at the company as they grew, but I mean, as you're working at many different companies, there's many different cultures. I can say that in working for the big companies that I did, there was the company culture of UOP, and that culture had to change when it was acquired. So really, it was two different places, but the culture of those two companies were very different. But that was only two cultures I've been exposed to. You were probably in your career have been exposed to dozens, because you've been at a dozen or so different companies with different leadership. And when the leadership interacts with each other, that creates a different culture. And you're very fortunate to find it young, the path that you wanted to go. Many people struggle with that until they're much older. And unfortunately, sometimes they get stuck too, right? Because they've invested 25, 30 years in banking. It's very hard then for them to step out and go to be an entrepreneur, let's say after 32 years of banking industry.
Oh, yeah. And you nailed it. The startups are the place in which you should change, and you should change often as soon as you see that the journey that you're in, it doesn't bring the results, the numbers you're aiming for. If you're looking for to have maybe 1,000 users and you have 200, you cannot stick in that path long in order to see a change. You must do a change rapidly. And that is the thing about startups that I love the most. A startup culture is the one that I most thrive in, the one that I enjoy the most, because it is not that I change often. It is that I'm looking at a specific KPI, a specific OKR, and I do what is needed to reach that number and surpass it, basically. in the problem with a well-known company, in this case, a bank, it was that the changes to take weeks or months, excuse me, and you're required to do it faster. In a startup, you don't have that luxury. You don't have those weeks. You have maybe days. And if you don't do that, the money will be depleted. That is not the case of a bank. At a bank, there are many uh, there's a lot of money running, and the bank won't go bankrupt. I haven't heard of a bank going bankrupt, but in the case of a startup, yes. So uh, that's why when I switched companies, I was so fortunate. I was so lucky to be hired by a startup. Maybe I could be hired back then at another bank because back then I didn't know about startups. What I was looking for was a big company. That's why I talked with my friend at Microsoft. I told him, dude, I have this one. Could you see if there is a position at Microsoft that I could be in? And he told me, going to look forward. And later on, when I was hired, I think that I met with him 1 month later. After I was hired, and he told me there wasn't a position at Microsoft, but there was this guy who was creating this company. We didn't know about the word startup back then, and I really liked what he told me. And I say, I have this guy which is really cool and great at this IT stuff and this development. He might help you. And you know, that's where my startup life began, and I really enjoy it. And the thing is, we usually when we apply to a company, we only see the name, we see the industry, we see the products and services they are building and creating and selling. But most of the time, we do not see the culture that is beneath, the culture that is the foundation. And I think it's really important because you might go to a company that you will say, oh my God, I'm working at this company. But if the culture doesn't match your culture point of view, you're going to be in a hell. You're going to hurt a lot because you're not going to be satisfied by this. So,
I completely agree. It's early determination that you're going to be happy, for lack of a better way of putting it, happy working there, right? And unfortunately, I think sometimes people don't emphasize that happy enough, because when you're young, I think you don't realize, look, you're going to work another 40 or 45 years, and that concept, right? When you're in your 20s, you can't understand it like us old guys, like you and I, right? Now that we've got so many decades into it, you reflect back and realize that, you know, choosing the career path that we truly enjoyed and felt most rewarded, not only monetarily, but right, but our inner self, our inner rewards of how proud we were of what we accomplished, what we were able to achieve, whether it was with teams or an individual product. That's what really made the career worthwhile. And it's just hard, I think, for younger people to see that because they haven't lived enough life yet. But once they've worked at a job that they hate waking up in the morning and they hate going to it, then they begin to realize there's got to be more to life, more to the career. And hopefully they realize that, yeah, if you can find a career that's aligned culturally with what makes you happy, it will be much easier. I was very fortunate that I was able to start my career, and I didn't even, gosh, for the first 15 years, I don't think I even set an alarm clock. I was like so excited to get up in the morning and go to work. I never set an alarm clock, and I think that's kind of a measure that you could have of, are you in the right company? Are you doing the right thing for your career? Well, do you have to set an alarm and you put it to snooze and you turn it off several times before you get out of bed and get ready to go to work? if you're doing those things, you're probably not in a rewarding career that's a good fit for you, and you should reflect back and think about, well, what am I doing wrong? Is it the actual physical job? Like, hey, I don't like IT. I'd like to go into marketing or sales or operations. Or is it, no, I can't stand how this company runs things. I love what I'm doing in IT, but I hate how this company operates. So I need to go to a different company doing similar kind of work, but a different company where maybe the reward is different.
Indeed, happy is the word. If you are meant to work at a place, at a company, try to be happy. If happy, it isn't a possible, um, a probable solution or a word that you could use, better think about where you are. And the thing about being wise, not old, you mentioned old. That no, man, we are wise. We're young still. But the thing is, when you're in your 20s and you begin working, usually we get amazed and shocked of the companies that we're going to work. Oh my God, it's going to be amazing. This company, I love the product, I love the service. Okay, what's beneath that? What is the culture? Are you going to be happy? Try talk with other people who are working at that company. And everybody sees the company differently. Some will say they are great, some will say the opposite. But in the end, if you find out about this, it's going to be much easier for you. And let me tell you, back at that bank, I have a friend, and he's I think he's 30 years old working at that company. And he got no 31, excuse me. And he's really happy. Why? Because he didn't want to become a manager. He isn't a manager. He's a lead. He still codes. He still programs. He likes what he does, but he didn't want to be a manager. So he wanted to keep typing in the keyboard, and he's really happy with that. And that's great because that culture helped him become that. But a culture has to be matched with the one that you have. If there is a fight between those two, it's going to be really difficult. So I think when we are happy where we are, it's like when you said that you didn't have an alarm clock. It's going because I'm going to work. It's not like say, "Oh my God, I'm going to work." No, I'm going to work with eagerness. No?
Exactly. And it's just, I part of it was luck, in terms of getting that job, but part of it is actually, reflecting and saying, I really like this place. I really like the people I work for. I like how we improve things. I like the company culture in terms of how people are evaluated, how ideas are critiqued, which ideas move forward, which ones don't. And for me, it was just a really good fit. It was not a good fit for other people that I worked with. Many of my peers that I was working with didn't stay, right? And they went to other companies. Why? Because not every culture is perfect for everybody. So just to your point, you need to realize that it's got to be right for you personally. And so, you can have two people in very similar career paths at the same company, and one hates it and one loves it. That's okay. That's all right. Neither one of you are right or wrong. It's just you found the right place for yourself, be happy with it. And, maybe you have to help the unhappy person find some place that is a better fit for them. Because, hopefully they reflect and they realize that they're not very happy working right alongside you, but they're miserable every day. That's okay. It's okay. That it's just not a good fit for them. And they may be really good at what they do, but they need to find a different place to do it at where they can be happy. Because again, careers are long. You got to work a really long time in your life, and it's not worth 45 years of hating it.
Yeah, indeed. Stick with the place that you're feeling happy. And usually the place that you're being happy goes along not only with the culture, but also with the leadership. So if you're feeling that way, go ahead and be true to yourself.
Without a doubt. Completely agree.
Got it. Cool, man. Well, since this is our first episode of 2025 and our second year anniversary of this podcast, we're going to have a lot of stuff to talk in this 2025.
Absolutely. It's going to be a good year.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot, Chris, and we'll see each other next week.
See you later, Roberto.